year is 2005, and once again, Tom Cruise is running. This time, from aliens. This is War of the Worlds.
Take care of our kids.
You got nothing to worry about.
That is so weird. The wind is blowing toward the storm.
It's okay. Lightning doesn't strike twice.
Where's the thunder? Robbie, you saw the lightning?
Yeah, 26 times on Lincoln Avenue.
Feel that?
I'm taking you to the car. You're gonna want to look around. But you're not going to, are you?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Random Rewatch. I am your host, Mike, and today we are going back to the year 2005. Low-rise jeans are everywhere, and the iPod Shuffle was brand new. Remember that? For our film this time, the two biggest titans in Hollywood, Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise, are taking on their second collaboration in War of the Worlds. So this film is different from your typical alien invasion movie. You know, last time we did Independence Day, which is kind of this big, bombastic, in-your-face kind of thing. This is a lot darker. It's sweaty. It's unsettling. Much less fun. And it feels kind of more like a survival horror film than anything else. So let's grab our flip phones, make sure that our cars have fresh solenoids, and get into Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. So as always, we're going to start with where this film came from. And to do that, we have to look at the source material, which is an 1898 novel by H.G. Wells called War of the Worlds. Wells basically invented the whole alien invasion genre and used it at the time as a pretty thinly veiled critique of British imperialism. Fast forward to the 1930s, 1938 in particular, and there was a very popular radio show called the Mercury Theater. And on Halloween in 1938, Orson Welles adapted the novel into a radio broadcast that was so realistic that it reportedly caused some genuine panic among listeners who thought actually that Martians were invading New Jersey. In 1953, there was a film by Byron Haskins that shifted the setting to California and gave us those iconic kind of floating manta ray spaceships that we've seen for the last 60 years. So Spielberg had wanted to do War of the Worlds for years. In fact, he was trying to gear up in the 1990s to do it, and then Independence Day came out, and he thought that, well, Independence Day came out, and also Mars Attacks came out, and so he thought that that space was kind of full for a while. Spielberg and Cruise had come together on Minority Report in 2002, and they had kind of floated around the idea of working on another project. Spielberg in the early 2000s got with screenwriter David Koepp, and they sat down to kind of crack a new version of War of the Worlds. They wanted to get away from like the typical sci-fi alien invasion tropes, much like we saw last time with Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich on Independence Day. They didn't want to fall too deeply into tropes. Neither did Spielberg and Koepp, and they specifically they didn't want to do like president in the Oval Office or a general in a control room looking at big screens, scientists in lab coats talking about the aliens' biology. They wanted a real boots on the ground, subjective view of the apocalypse that would be caused by an alien invasion. We only really know what our main character knows, and we only see really what he sees. So one thing that's really important to consider about this movie is the time frame in which it was made. This is very much a post 9/11 movie. The imagery is, it's really kind of striking when you think about it in the context of when it was done. Just things like, after the first attack, Tom Cruise is covered in dust and there's debris all over the place, and that is a very striking visual image from after the 9/11 attacks. The wall with posters and names of missing people on it. The fact that when the lightning first hits, people are automatically jumping to the idea that it's a terrorist attack. But I think more importantly is that there's an anxiety throughout this entire film. And I think that's something that's very real and very palpable. And in 2005, I remember this being something that was very familiar because we had just gone through it several years earlier. And so this is something that people in the audience at the time would certainly recollect and certainly would be very visceral for them. You know, this isn't a movie about fighting the aliens. This is a movie about surviving the aliens. And if you look at Spielberg's like prior quote-unquote alien movies, things like Close Encounters and E.T., this is kind of the exact opposite of those. Those movies have hope, and they're about pushing forward. This movie is about just getting by. Also very different is the look of this film compared to those earlier films. But it is very much in the vein of Minority Report. In fact, it kind of doubles down on that. The cinematographer is Janusz Kaminski, who is Spielberg's kind of go-to guy since Schindler's List. He's got a very distinct style. You know that if you've seen Minority Report or you've seen Saving Private Ryan, you know that he loves like this intense film grain, blown-out lighting, desaturated colors, high contrast. So in this, he uses a technique called bleach bypass on the film stock. And what that tends to do is really blow out the highlights in the film, so brights become really, really bright. Darks become really, really dark. Makes everything look kind of ghostly, and again, foreshadows this kind of idea of the terrorist attack and the destruction of the areas that we're seeing. This movie, it doesn't feel like it's really finely polished, even though this is a Spielberg movie. Every frame in this movie is intentional, but it does not feel that way. It feels dirty and grimy. Filming was done from November 2004 to March 2005, largely filmed in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Virginia, and California. Industrial Light and Magic did a lot of the effects in this film. Of course, we got to talk about the music. This is the maestro, John Williams. If you are expecting, though, that a typical John Williams score with his like soaring melodies and huge orchestral pieces, that's not what this is. This kind of more goes back to like Jaws almost, with it's got like a lot of low dissonant brass strings, some kind of strange electronic sounds. There's no real hero theme. John Williams really loves leitmotifs, which are, you know, specific themes for specific things. And I don't really think there is one of those in here. You know, while we're talking about music, I just want to talk about the sound design and the sound of the alien ships. Especially that, I don't know what it's supposed to be, the klaxon, the horn, is really kind of incredible. And really, like, kind of inspires dread. So that stuff, really, really well done. So let's get into War of the Worlds. So we start with kind of a long voiceover, which I usually kind of frown upon. But this is Morgan Freeman, so we'll go with it.
Would have believed in the early years of the 21st century that our world was being watched by intelligences greater than our own. That as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they observed and studied. The way a man with a microscope might scrutinize the creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop.
He's talking about how mankind spread across the globe confidently and how we didn't know it, but we're being observed like a drop of water under a microscope. There's some pretty heavy foreshadowing here. Then we wind up in Bayonne, New Jersey. We see a dock with dock workers unloading a ship and a crane operator, Ray Ferrier. This is Tom Cruise. Now, this is what, I think the fourth Tom Cruise movie that we've done. So I'm not going to, like, totally recap his career. This is right after Collateral, which is a film that we did do an episode on. It's right before Mission Impossible 2. So this is kind of, I think Tom Cruise is kind of in a transition here from being a movie star to being like a movie star. And really being in a position where he is calling all of the shots going forward. The kind of weird thing about this role is Tom Cruise has done unlikable characters, certainly. I mean, Vincent in Collateral is literally a hitman. I don't think anybody could argue that Cole Trickle is not particularly likable. I'd even argue that Pete Mitchell is kind of a jerk most of the time. You know, Ron Kovac, even Ethan Hunt can be kind of insufferable at times. This is a little bit different, and this guy is really unlikable. And not only is he really unlikable, you know, all of those other characters kind of turn you around on the character. Not this guy. I think I walked out of this movie just disliking Ray as much as I did right at the beginning. I mean, he's, as we're going to see, he's not a nice person. He doesn't make really great life choices. He's kind of an idiot. He's not a good father. And Cruise is just kind of going with this the whole way through. And you got to kind of respect him for it. A lot of times, actors are not willing to go out on that kind of a limb and make their person like totally irredeemable. And I think Ray is kind of maybe one of those guys. Anyway, he gets off work. He winds up coming home. And he sees his ex-wife is dropping off their kids. Apparently, it's his time to watch them. And they're going out of town, or they're going to Boston to visit her mother or something. This is Miranda Otto, who probably most people will recognize from her role as Éowyn in the Lord of the Rings movies. She is an Australian actress. She comes from a very theatrical family. And like I said, Éowyn is probably her biggest role. Spielberg liked her because she was like, he felt that she was kind of very grounded and warmth and had this credibility in a family dynamic. She almost turned the role down because she was pregnant, and Spielberg and Koepp went back to the drawing board and they rewrote the character of Marianne to be pregnant just so that they could keep her. And Ray is immediately kind of critical or mocking of Marianne's new husband.
8:30? Did we say that?
We said 8 o'clock.
Oh. Hey, this is one safe-looking new vehicle you got yourself here, Tim. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh. 8 o'clock, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this guy. He's kind of a jerk, and he doesn't really take anything seriously. We meet the kids. There's Robbie, who is played by Justin Chatwin. He's a Canadian actor. He was kind of really an up-and-comer at this point in his career. He would later go on to play Jimmy in Shameless, along with a lot of guest appearances on various TV shows, smaller roles in various movies. He would be in Another Life with Kitty Sackhoff as a semi-regular role. The daughter, Rachel, is played by Dakota Fanning. We saw her in our episode on Man on Fire with Denzel Washington. She's like literally an acting prodigy. I mean, by this point in her career, she's worked with Sean Penn in I Am Sam. She worked with Denzel Washington in Man on Fire. And now she's working with Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg in this movie. The thing about her performance of Rachel is like this real, like, grounded, almost adult-like emotion to her, which we're going to see throughout the movie. So Marianne and Tim leave, and there are these news reports of electrical storms in the Ukraine and then other parts of the world. And, you know, we're hearing about EMPs and power fluctuations.
A country of some 52 million people is in almost total blackness tonight in the wake of a series of freakish lightning storms of catastrophic proportion, which struck the country at approximately 4 a.m. local time.
EMP, or electromagnetic pulse, which causes a temporary interruption of all electrical current within its field. As in the Ukraine, there are scattered reports that the EMP here was followed by seismic activity on the scale of an earthquake, measuring 6.5 on the Richter scale.
Ray goes out with Robbie, and he's trying to get him to play catch. And, you know, Robbie is just a normal, disinterested, annoyed teenager with anger issues and father issues. And that doesn't go particularly very well. And Rachel is kind of like like I said, she's kind of being the adult in the room, and she's kind of scolding Ray on how he is reacting with Robbie.
What?
It's not how you're going to get through to him. If you want him to listen to you,
What are you? Your mother or mine?
Where are you going?
Go to sleep. I work for a living.
What are we supposed to eat?
You know, order.
So she goes, like, hey, what are you going to feed us? And he's like, I'm going to bed just to order something. And then she does order stuff. She orders, like, Mediterranean food. And he doesn't know what it is because apparently they don't have hummus in 2005 Bayonne. But there's more news stories coming up, and then all of a sudden this, like, lightning storm starts to hit right near where they live, and they can see it from the house, and he goes out into the yard. There's this beautiful shot of the Bayonne Bridge, and which is apparently right in his backyard. Rachel's getting scared. Power goes out, and Ray decides, because he makes bad life choices, he decides he's going to go downtown where the lightning is hitting and see what's going on down there. And so he leaves the kids, he goes downtown, he goes walking by his buddy who owns a mechanic shop. He's like, oh, the car's not, all these cars stopped working, and I'm working on this car. And Ray just tells him, oh, change the solenoid, it'll be fine. No, that's not how cars work. Changing the solenoid is not going to make the car all of a sudden work. If there's been an EMP, then everything in that car is fried. But they're going to need a car later, so...
Hey, was it dead?
All of them. Everything. Look at this. Start is fried.
Lightning hit it?
Not even close. I thought if I changed it, you got any idea what's going on?
I'm on my way to find out. Tried changing the solenoid. Probably fried.
Right, that's what I said. I told you that.
We run into a couple of his friends, Vincent and Julio. Vincent is Ricardo Gonzalez. Julio is Yul Vasquez. And so everybody's kind of gathered around the spot where the lightning hit, and the ground starts to shake. And this is really the best sequence in the movie, is this tripod, we're going to call him, coming up out of the ground. And there's this great sequence, it's a digital sequence of the church that's like basically getting ripped apart, and there's a big crack in it, and part of it's moving, the ground is breaking apart, and then this giant thing comes up out of the ground. There's no music, there's just the sound of whatever's going on here. The sound design, absolutely fantastic through here. I think first we see the smaller one, and then the big one comes out of the ground. So there's a lot of, like, indirect views that Spielberg has us doing here. There's, like, reflections in window. Ray standing there, and you don't see the tripod. You see its reflection in the window. We saw that with the lightning as well. Like, the first real attack we see through the viewfinder of a camcorder. Remember those? Of a camcorder that somebody had that falls on the ground, and we're still, like, looking through the viewfinder of the camcorder. So there's this attack, and people are running, and this thing is shooting, and it's just, like, basically evaporating the organic tissue because their clothes are left behind. And we're going to talk about this later on in the movie. But Ray finally comes to his senses and decides to go home, and he's covered, as I said in the intro, he's covered in this dust. It's very 9/11-y. I remember a story that a friend of mine told me who worked in Manhattan. He worked in Upper Manhattan, and he told me about people just walking uptown covered in that dust because they had nowhere else to go. And that's kind of where Ray's at. He gets home, and he's kind of out of it a little bit. Kids are obviously scared. Rachel is basically catatonic at this point, and they all kind of snap out of it, and he tells the kids to pack. He's like, we're getting out of here. We're going to go to your mom's house. And they go back downtown. They go to Manny's. I think it was Manny who's got the shop, because he knows this one car is going to be running because Manny put a solenoid in it. So he's going to go steal that car, and Manny tries to stop him and doesn't realize what's going on.
Open the door, come on. Open the door, Ray. What are you?
Get in, Manny.
That's funny. You gotta get out of the car. You
Manny,
can't
get
do
in
this.
the
Not
car.
my car. Not your
Manny,
car.
listen to me, pal.
What are you got,
Manny,
kids?
Manny,
Daddy's
shut up.
acting crazy.
Get in, Manny.
Guy's gonna come back. He's not gonna.
Manny, I don't have time to explain.
You're busting my chops here. I got a shop to run. You know how many
Manny,
people's
listen to
cars?
me.
No, Ray, get out of the car.
Get in, Manny, or you're gonna die.
Apparently, Manny didn't have any solenoids for any of the other cars, but Manny winds up getting killed. The thing winds up coming. They do wind up escaping in, the only running car in New Jersey, apparently. And they're driving down the highway. Apparently, when all the cars died, there was enough room on the highway for them to get through. Rachel goes into full panic mode. Meanwhile, Ray is like, I don't know, he's kind of spitballing and trying to figure out what's going on and what's happening.
I want to know everything you know.
This thing, this machine, it crawled out of the ground, started torturing everything. It's killing everybody.
What is it? Is it terrorists?
This came from someplace else.
What do you mean, like Europe?
No, Robbie, not like Europe!
They finally get to the house. There's nobody at the house, but the lights are on. Rachel wants to know, why are the lights on? Why is nobody here? And Ray's like trying to calm her down, trying to let her know, oh, they're already gone to Boston. Nothing bad happened here.
They're gone. Yes, she did.
She's not dead. She's just not here, okay? They're never here.
How do you know?
Because they're on their way to Boston. And so they just kept on going up to Boston. They're probably up at your grandma's house by now.
I'm gonna call her.
How come the lights are on here and not at your place?
Because nothing bad happened here. Okay? So we're safe here. All right?
And so as they're sleeping in the basement. And as they're sleeping, something starts happening outside, and they're thinking it's another attack, but it's not another attack. It's a plane crash. And a plane crashes right in the neighborhood. Apparently one of the engines lands right next to a table, and it's fine. But so they go out and they find this news crew that is out there scavenging in the wreckage for food, the prepackaged food that's in the airplanes. And the reporter in the van tells Ray that these ships are showing up all over the world. It's not just here. They're everywhere, and they're taking out cities. They're destroying everything, and that they came down in the lightning. And she's got this video that she shows him that shows the capsules coming down in the lightning.
Those machines come up from under the ground, right? So that means they must have been buried here a long time ago. So who's driving them things? Watch the lightning. Watch it. Watch the lightning. Keep watching the lightning.
What is that?
That is them. They come down in capsules, riding the lightning into the ground, into the machines, right?
And so the news crew leaves, and then Ray and Rachel and Robbie, the three of them leave to go to Boston. So they start driving through to Boston, and initially they're taking back roads. They do stop at one point because, they're cooped up in the car. Rachel's a kid, and, she's got to go to the bathroom, and she goes off into like the woods somewhere, and she comes across this river, and there's bodies floating down the river. So that's obviously disturbing. They get back on the road, and eventually they come across people, and, they've got the one operating car. So there's a bit of a riot, and people storm the car and basically pull them out of the car. The army comes by at one point, and Robbie, for some reason, is like obsessed with the idea of joining the army because he wants to do something and he wants to fight back somehow. And, Ray's trying to talk him out of that.
What's your plan, huh? You're in charge now. You tell me what we're doing. What do we do? These soldiers. Look up and whoever else isn't dead, and we get back at them. We get back at them. That's what we do. Well, now let's try one that doesn't involve your 10-year-old sister joining the army. Do you have anything like that? What are you just telling me? You want to try something like that? Do you have anything like that? You want to come up on one? You only chose Boston because you hope Mom's there, and if she's there, you can dump us on her. You can dump us on her, and then you only have to care about yourself, which is exactly the way you like it.
They make it to Athens, New York, which is on the Hudson River, and there's a ferry that they're going to go across. For some reason, there's, these thousands of people, and there's still cars on the ferry. I don't know why they wouldn't have pushed the cars off the ferry to let more people on. But there's people crowding to get onto this ferry to go across the river. and one of the tripods shows up and starts shooting people. So then there's a panic, and then apparently there is a huge tripod in the river. It's really actually a very cool scene. The ferry capsizes, people freaking out, people running all over the place. Off in the distance, you can see the army is engaging one of these things, and Robbie again is trying to go. And Ray is kind of torn between taking care of Rachel and stopping Robbie from going. He really can't do both of these things. So Robbie is just trying to tell him to just let him go.
Wait, just listen to me. I need to be here. I want to see this. Wait, just stick Rachel, see if your sister. Please let me go. You need to let me go.
He looks over in the distance and he sees that Rachel, who he had left by a tree, there's some people who are trying to get her to go with them. I don't think this is anything like nefarious. I think they really just see this little girl standing by herself and are trying to protect her. But now Ray is caught in between trying to get Robbie to come back and trying to get Rachel back, and he has to make a choice, and he chooses Rachel. So Robbie's gone. He runs off with the military. Rachel and Ray are running. They've made it across the river. When the ferry capsized, they managed to swim to the other side of the river. So they're on the run, and there's still people running from these things. And they come across this farmhouse, and there's a guy near the Bilko door, which is the door to the basement, with a shotgun, and he's like waving them to like, come in, you can hide here, you can hide here. So they're running down to the basement, and we meet Harlan Ogilvy, who is played by Tim Robbins. Most people would probably consider Tim Robbins to be best known for playing Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption. Robbins' first role was in a 1984 low-budget action movie called Toy Soldiers. Had a couple of small roles in things like Howard the Duck, The Sure Thing, Top Gun. His first maybe big role was playing Nuke LaLoosh in 1988's Bill Durham. And he won an Oscar for his role as David Boyle in Mystic River in 2003. The biggest special effect in this movie is making it not look like Tim Robbins is almost a foot taller than Tom Cruise. The dude is 6'5". Tom Cruise is reportedly 5'7". Anyway, so they wind up in Ogilvy's basement. We see that the tripods, as they're running from the tripods, we see that they're actually taking people. They have these long arms that come down and they grab people and they lift them up into the ship. At this point, we don't know why. And Ogilvy starts to explain his kind of philosophy on things, that they're not really in a war, that they're in basically an extermination, and that he seems like they don't really have a lot of chance.
They defeated the greatest power in the world in a couple days. Walked right over us. And these are only the first. They'll keep coming. This is not a war any more than there's a war between men and maggots. This is an extermination.
So the movie really kind of switches tones here. It goes from being like this kind of disaster survival epic to like this psychological thriller for this sequence in the basement. I think it's really kind of jarring, actually. It's just such a tonal shift that we will just leave and go back to the survival movie at some point. But for like this, 13, 15 minutes, whatever the sequence is in the basement, it feels like it's almost a different movie. And Ogilvy is clearly like this kind of paranoid lunatic almost. And he's trying to convince Ray into like, oh, we can fight this. We can fight these guys together.
Why did you bring us here?
To fight them together, right? Now we'll be the ones coming up from underground. When the time is right, take them by surprise the way they took us. Take them by surprise. We're right under their feet, right? Right here. Under their feet.
So there's this whole sequence where the aliens send probes down into the basement of this farmhouse. It's like, are they checking out every house to this extent? Because the thing is in there for a while. Or are they suspicious that there are people in the basement of this and they're spending extra time in this one house? But there's this like long probe thing that comes down the stairs, and it's kind of really reminiscent of the sequence in The Abyss where, the water probe, I guess, comes in. So it's kind of that kind of vibe. It's got lights and a lens on the end of it, and it's looking around, looking for people. And at one point they distract it with a mirror. I guess they don't have mirrors. But then anyway, eventually the aliens themselves come in, and they're these little three-legged dudes. They look like the tripods, or like the tripods look like them, I guess. They're anthropomorphized in whatever their world is, and they're coming down and they're checking out like a bicycle, and it just seems like they're spending an awful lot of time in this farmhouse when there's like millions of houses around. Like, are they checking out every house to this extent? At one point, Ogilvy wants to chop the probe with an axe, and Ray like stops him, and there's a little bit of a struggle, so you can see there's a little conflict setting up. There's also these cuts to these vines that are like growing through the wall of the basement, and these red vines, and we don't know what that is yet, but that's obviously foreshadowing for something that's coming up. In the morning, we see that Harlan has looked out the window and he's seen something that's terrifying him, and Ray comes and looks, and apparently they're taking the people that they're capturing and putting them down on the ground, and then they're siphoning their blood out of them. And so this is the question I have. It's like, what if they're using the blood of people to spray on the vines, and that's important to them? Well, like, why are they disintegrating people throughout the whole beginning of the movie? I mean, you're basically killing your own fertilizer at that point. But Harlan is still kind of caught up in this, and this idea that they're going to fight back and that they're going to take some kind of steps, and Ray just wants to kind of lay low and protect Rachel.
Not my blood! Not my blood! Not my blood! Not my blood!
Be quiet.
They drink us!
Please.
They drink us!
They'll hear you.
And they spray us like fertilizer.
You gotta be quiet.
Drink us and
Gotta come back down
then
here.
they spit us out all of that red wheat!
Do you understand what I'm gonna have to do?
I can't let my daughter die because of you. This tunnel.
And so he winds up killing Harlan so that he doesn't expose their location to the aliens, which almost happened. So anyway, another probe comes, they get away from that, they get back on the road, or they're walking, they wind up in this small town where the army is taking on this tripod, and this factory that the tripod is fighting over is actually in Naugatuck, Connecticut, for my Connecticut peeps. But Rachel notices, and she points out to Ray, and then Ray notices that the local birds are landing on the tripod, so that makes him think the shields are gone. So he tells the soldiers, because professional soldiers whose job is to fight these guys would not have noticed that. Thank God Ray is there. So they shoot a javelin missile at the thing, and they take down the tripod. But Rachel winds up getting caught by one of these things and brought up into this like basket underneath the tripod body. And so Ray finds a bag of grenades on the ground, and he lets himself get caught, and then he lets himself get brought into like the main body of the ship, and apparently pulls all the pins out of the grenades so that they'll blow up inside the ship. This seems incredibly dangerous. They're like 100 feet off the ground. His daughter's here in this cage, strapped to the bottom of this tripod, and this crane operator is deciding he's going to go on the offensive and blow this thing up, and I don't think he really knows what's going to happen, but, you know, it's a movie. It all works out. So they get away. The army has figured out a way to defeat the tripods, and so they start fighting back. Nobody knows why the shields are gone, but it doesn't really matter. And Rachel and Ray, they find their way to Boston, and they get to the house, and Ray notices that the vines are dying. There's some vines on a statue, but they're turning gray, and they're all dried out and brittle. But they get to the house, and Marianne comes out of the house, and they all greet one another, and miraculously, Robbie is there as well. He's made it on his own to Boston. And then we get a voice narration, again by Morgan Freeman, that explains the whole situation, that it was the germs.
From the moment the invaders arrived, breathed our air, ate and drank, they were doomed. They were undone, destroyed, after all of man's weapons and devices had failed, by the tiniest creatures that God in his wisdom put upon this earth. By the toll of 1 billion deaths, man had earned his immunity, his right to survive among this planet's infinite organisms.
Because not only does this alien race that's been planning the takeover of Earth for thousands, if not millions of years, not have mirrors, they also don't have antibiotics. And to be fair, that does harken back to the original novel. It was germs that killed the aliens. So I guess it's going back to that original idea. It just seems like maybe they'd be a little more protected than that. But anyway, that is the end of War of the Worlds. Movie premiered on June 23rd in 2005 in the Ziegfeld Theater in New York, and then it opened on June 29th. Most of the cast and crew were actually as surprised as anybody else about the aliens and what they look like and what their end game was, because nobody really got all that story even when they were making the film. It was very compartmentalized, and only a very few people really had the whole story going on. None of the crew or the actors had seen what the aliens would turn out to be, because that was done later on in post-production and from a special effects unit. So they were never in the place where stuff was getting filmed. So all that was kept really, really secret, even from people who were involved in making of the movie. Did $81 million on opening day. It did $98 million in the first week. Wound up with a total of $234 million domestically, $369 million internationally, for a total of $603 million on a budget of $132. So it was mildly successful. 76 on Rotten Tomatoes. Notably, it does have a 42 audience score, so the critics liked this a lot more than the audience did. It's got a 73 on Metacritic and a B+ on Cinescore. The biggest bones of contention between critics and audiences alike seems to be, one, the basement sequence is really kind of out of place in the movie, and the way it ended with Robbie just kind of showing up in Boston, actually having beaten Ray and Rachel to Boston. Roger Ebert, 2 out of 4 stars. He said it was a big, clunky movie containing some sensational sights, but lacking the zest and joyous energy we expect from Steven Spielberg. The movie did get 3 Academy Award nominations: Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. It lost out to Peter Jackson's King Kong, I think, in all of those. Dakota Fanning, though, did get a Saturn Award. So that is it for War of the Worlds. Thank you for listening. We have one more Alien movie coming down the pike, and that will be coming out soon. And then it's off into the summer, full speed. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to check out our House of the Dragon content, which is coming. Catch you next time.